Thanks, Glenn. Hello, everyone. So my name is Kim Krebs. I head up the Community Engagement Program. Slight correction to Glenn's comment, from the Adelaide and Mount Lofty Ranges region. But we work in collaboration with the SA Murray-Darling Basin region. So my talk is on behalf of the Adelaide Mount Lofty Ranges NRM board and some work that it commissioned. So I'd like to acknowledge that I'm chatting to you today on the Kaurna country, and I feel like it's a very privileged position to be where I'm standing and what I have to say with you. So in the less than 6 minutes, I want to give you a really frighteningly quick introduction to community-based social marketing, then talk about the survey findings that we commissioned in 2016, share some fascinating facts with you, and then leave it to you. Community-based social marketing is the whole intent about behaviour change, and most of us in the room, for one reason or another, want to change people's behaviour. So we come up with this brilliant idea, let's call it, we select a behaviour you want to change, and then we go straight to step 5 is implement a massive wide campaign to change the world, and then wonder why it didn't go well, it didn't work. So one of the things we need to do is break it down into bite-sized chunks. We need to try and understand what's the single behaviour we want to change, understand the barriers and benefits around those behaviours, develop strategies that might start to shift those barriers or benefits, have a crack at piloting, and then learn, and then maybe roll out an effective program that might influence behaviour change. What we realised in doing any of that investigation is that you really need to understand values and behaviours, and surprisingly, this is done in 2016. To that point, there had not been a single wide observation across South Australia about how do we as a community connect to the environment. So that was the first thing we needed to do. We need to actually find out what are South Australians' values and behaviours towards the environment. So in 2016, it was around about August, late August, early September, we commissioned some research. We kind of based it on the work that New South Wales Office for the Environment and Heritage has been doing for the last 15 or so years, a longitudinal study about values and behaviours. We realised that, that the state is biased towards most people living in the metro area, but we needed to capture everyone's opinions because it's about how do we tap into the individuals of South Australia and how do we understand what they're thinking. So we commissioned a survey, 1,000 responses. It had to be, for all sorts of reasons, just talking to adults. About 500 recipients or successful completed surveys were done in the metropolitan area, 125 responses in what we would call the peri-urban and the Mount Lofty Ranges region, about 125 surveys in the Murray-Darling Basin NRM region because they were a partner in this project, and then 250 surveys across the rest of South Australia. That information was then, I'm not a statistician, it was magically stirred in with ABS statistics and comes out at 95% plus or minus 3 as being statistically accurate. So it's good data. It's randomly stratified data, randomly stratified people have participated. It is a genuine reflection of values and behaviours. When you do a survey like what we've done, a across-the-board survey about values and behaviours, you also need to capture what's happening at that moment of the survey because as humans we're easily distracted by what we're hearing and seeing at the very time of being asked questions. So in this period in late August 2016, the Royal Adelaide Hospital, there was lots of hoo-ha about how much it costs and waiting times and that sort of stuff. There was conversation around the oil exploration in the Great Australian Bight, lots of concerns around employment, a lot of issues around the cost of energy consumption. But more importantly, it's worth knowing that at the time that this survey was done, we hadn't had that major storm event that blacked out the state. I'm only giving you that context. I'm not going to share you the information, but when you dive into it at your own leisure, you'll see what an interesting state of mind we have as a population. So out of the findings, there's about 120 pages of information, and if I was to give you 5 key points, it's that we've got social licence from the people of South Australia to be in the space that we're in, which is about encouraging, fostering behaviour change for the environment. We've got an insight to what the key issues are for South Australians. Not my words as an NRM practitioner or as your words as a scientist, but what are the South Australians' words and issues when it comes to the environment. We've got a good handle on, as individuals, what are the triggers for good behaviours and what are the barriers that stop good behaviours. And we've also got, and this is a secondary objective of the research, what we call segmentation of the community. So broadly, how could you cluster people in South Australia? And all these things help us with our communications packages. I'm not going to tell you how to use the information, because what drives you to want to change people's behaviour is different to what drives me. So I can only point you towards the fascinating facts that we've been able to glean from the survey. But just a few little things, like when we're asked who's responsible for looking after the environment, 28% of South Australians say we're all responsible for looking after the environment. That's social licence. We should harness that. When people are asked what's the most important environmental issue for South Australians today, almost 1 in 5 people will say it's water. Whether it's water quality, water security, drought readiness, water is really important. When it comes to asking people, when people say how concerned they are about the environment, 73% say that they've got a genuine concern about the environment. We've got this social licence. Interestingly, also what the survey shows us is that 35% of the population would describe themselves as conservationists and active conservationists. So they're aware of the issues and they feel like they play an active role. 22% of the population, they feel that they believe that they're aware of the environmental issues, but they don't think that they are environmental practitioners. But that said though, they'll still use the yellow lidded bin, they'll still compost, they'll still probably plant the odd tree in the bush block next door. There's about 28% of the population who are mostly younger people, younger means sub 35 by the stats, that they wouldn't describe themselves as environmentally aware and environmentally active. But interestingly, that subset of our community are people who know a lot about the environment, and what they're actually doing is saying that they don't know everything. So they're actually they're making a judgment about what they know and what they don't know. So they're hungry for more information. And then there's about 15% of the population who in essence are disengaged. They're not particularly interested in talking to you about the environment or being environmentalists, but that doesn't mean that they don't do good environmental things. So very broadly, the survey findings give us an insight in how we can pitch our message and how we can start to foster the behaviour change. What you'll find in the survey findings is that as environmentalists wanting to look after furry critters or green-leafed bushes or whatever they are, you'll look at these surveys and go, well, this isn't helping me foster environmental stewardship to look after a bilby. That's not the way it's pitched. The survey has to be suitable for anybody who's got an environmental interest to be able to tap into. We've shared the survey findings with over 500 people across the state. Almost all of our local governments now have a copy of the survey findings because they can use it to empower their community. All of the NRM regions have used the survey findings. Similarly, you can use barriers to try and develop good protocols around how to change people's behaviour, and I'm just going to tip to the last one because I can see that I'm just being encroached on by people who know all about it. Type into your search engine AMLR Merry People, and that will take you to the very first thing that should pop up on the screen is the link on the Adelaide Mount Lofty Ranges Natural Resource Management website page, where you'll have a direct link into the website, the survey. There's a 41-minute presentation of me giving the survey findings, 120 pages of the raw findings, a survey document. And over the next 12 months, we'll be looking at who has used the survey findings so that we can justify actually repeating the survey again and finding out whether our interventions are influencing people's behaviour.